Hello and welcome to
Hey, you like your pod?
and we're going to tell you why. Hi, it's Dawn here, and I'm joined as always by my trusted partner, Matt Pickett. How you doing, Maddie, with your polka dot volcano?
I'm doing good. I just realized how poor my lighting is in front of me. So for those watching right now, like, whoop, there we go. There I am. Yeah, I'm good. Still kind of getting over this cough that I've had, but it's getting better slowly but surely. Other than that, it's weirdly cold here in most of the country right now at the moment, except for probably where you are, Dawn. I realize you're probably immune from it, sheltered in your seaside paradise. But it's been weird, but that's spring. I mean that's spring
Yeah.
weather. It's up, it's down, it's everywhere. So whatever. No, I can't complain. I'm good. I'm feeling good about stuff. So how about you? How are you doing?
I like it. I like it. I'm feeling good about stuff too. Just bought some flowers today for my spring sign paradise.
Nice.
Couple flowers that so certain I'm switching. I have mostly a container garden because I've downsized. I sold my home, I live in an apartment. So I have like some balconies where I can put. So it's urban gardening, basically. Everything's in a container. And I really didn't I wasn't serious about my apartment garden until COVID. And then I started fooling around with growing vegetables in pots and things like that because I was stuck at home like everybody else, and I still am. So now so I find out what works and what doesn't work. Mostly flowers are mostly what's interesting to me, but it's just that time of year here where the flower fields are blooming and that kind of thing. So it gets really, and so I've learned how to grow from seeds, which is challenging. I don't always do that, but I have some little seedlings going and I'm obsessed with them because it only takes an hour to ruin all your seedlings if you like perhaps having out the sun and it's a little overcast or cloudy and then all of a sudden it's full blast sun because the sun here will just burn everything immediately.
Oh, sure.
So I was out visiting a friend today, and then another friend and I stopped at the garden center, and I was like, oh my gosh, the sun's out. I have to get home to my seedlings. It was like they would die. My babies are going to die. So I rushed home. My seedlings are not dead. I'm happy. That's it. Got a couple of flowers that I think will work really well that actually come back every year, which have been always a favorite. And they actually are they're very common, probably where you live and in Wisconsin, where a lot of our listeners live, but they're called delphiniums. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but
yeah, totally.
they're purple and pink and white, but I love the imperial blue ones. They're almost the color of your shirt.
Ooh.
Is your shirt blue or purple? Looks blue to me.
It is blue. It is blue.
Yeah, like a royal blue. And I have a lot of blue flowers I'm obsessed with. And so you have to rush it. If you want to, I have some from seeds, but if from last year, and they're coming back, which is amazing. That's really amazing that you can grow a seed and have it last 1 year, but then have the plant come back the next year. I'm like, success, this is great. But just to be safe, I wanted to get a couple small delphinium. They're sometimes hard to get them small because they're a large plant and they grow large. And so usually they're in at least a gallon, and I just wanted babies and it's hard to get in. So I found 2 baby delphiniums. I was thrilled. And yeah, life is good here too.
Excellent.
In the pure blue, in the blue.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tonight's kind of an unusual format for the show. Do you want to tell our listeners and viewers about what we're doing tonight?
Sure, Maddie, right to business. Okay, so for one thing,
5 minutes in, right to business.
For one thing, we have pre-recorded our interview with our special guest this week, J.R. Radcliffe. We're going to start with our superlatives, and then we're going to throw it over to our interview with J.R., and then we're going to say our good nights. So, with that, do you have some superlatives, Maddie, that you brought?
Yes, I do. And you have some too?
I do. Want a volley?
Let's volley.
Okay. Well, mine are pretty. Two of them are clips, like, so we're going to mostly listen because it's much more interesting than listening to me try to tell you about the clip, about the videos and all that. So I will start with really quickly, if I can find it. So sorry. I will let you start because
Okay, I will start with Matt starting. So my first one I have here is like most awesome non-football but Packers community thing that I saw this week. So our friend Sarah Kelleher went on a long vacation to South Africa recently and got some amazing pictures from the place where she was. It was like a whole like tourist destination, like resort or something like that, where it was set up to be a place where you can take amazing pictures of the wildlife. And she was talking all about it on the Wednesday Pack a Day, with Dusty and Steve. And it sounds just like the most amazing thing. But the thing is, she posted a bunch of her best pictures on her Twitter, and they're really, really good. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know Sarah was good at this, but it turns out she has massive amounts of skill. So just seeing those, looking through them, somebody who personally really enjoys taking good pictures, always trying to get like the best possible picture that I can, I was thinking about that. I was super, super, super impressed with Sarah's work. It was a lot of fun to see those. And, it's always cool to see like the talents of the people in our Packers Twitter community that you just didn't know they had. So that was a lot of fun. I like that a lot. Good work, Sarah.
Yes, I love that. I really enjoyed her photos, and that's something I've wanted to do, that I've been invited to do. But one of my comments under her picture, her original post, not the podcast, was, what kind of vaccines did you have to get? Because that's always been what scares me off, because you had like malaria and all that kind of stuff you have to get vaccinated for. And and so I wanted to talk to her about that. I need to talk to her more about that. But I do have friends who have gone, and I was invited one year because there was a last minute opening, and I was like, I don't think I can live through the vaccines. I'll die from just even getting over there, too. But I would love to do, that's one of my dreams. My friends that have done it, they are like in a safari type camp with kind of glamping kind of quarters where it's a permanent kind of tent, and they cook for you, and then they take you out, and so fantastic. It was great to see that. And she did she talk about the camera that she used by any chance, or did she just use her phone?
I don't think she did.
Oh, okay.
I'm curious.
Yeah, we have to check. Yeah, we had to check. Because both, if you're listening to the show as regulars, you'll know that both Matt and I enjoy a little bit of photography on the side too. So yeah, great superlative. I actually realized that all of my superlatives have either a video or an audio component. So my first one, I just forgot the third one. The first one, third. The most fun goes to JF Central, and it's just a quick little short on YouTube that I found. Kill, Kiss, or Marry. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Do you know what that is? Somebody that questioner
I've heard the more crude version of that, but yes.
Oh, okay. Well, JF Central asked Mike McDaniel about his coaching tree.
Okay.
Yep. So let me grab that real quick, because we know Mike McDaniel is friends with our coach, who's friends with so many of the coaches.
Yeah, the Piss Boys. That's right.
Oh God, yes, that's right. Okay, so let me grab that, and hopefully you all will be able to see this. And here we go. It's very short. It's very sweet. Let me make sure my volume's all the way up.
Or marry your coaching tree. Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay.
Start with Matt. I'd kiss him because he's most endearing.
Eyebrows?
Yeah. I would marry Kyle because I've spent the most time with him. So I should marry him, and I would kill Sean. Just was the last team that I played, and he beat me.
I just have to say,
Perfect.
I love Mike McDaniels. I really do. He's just the best. He's so fun. So
Mhm.
that was cute. That was
I like
fun.
This is the fact that he would answer that. Like there was a text on that for those who are watching instead of listening, it was like basically this is the only coach in the NFL who would actually answer this question, and that is so true. I can't see Matt LaFleur would be like, what are you asking me? And he'd be like, next question. He wouldn't entertain nothing.
He wouldn't want to insult anyone, so he wouldn't want to answer.
also
He's so
that.
diplomatic. But yeah, no, Mike McDaniel is so brutally honest. That's what I
Mhm.
love about him. He's just so real, and just I love that guy. Love him, and
He's
I
really
love
great.
that he's friends with our coachy.
Yep. All right, should I do my next one?
Yes, please.
All right, so this one is just the coolest. This goes out to our friend Joey Van Zummeren, who is covering the combine
Yes.
in his first year of college. He's there, and he's majoring in journalism, I believe, if I remember correctly. So it would make a lot of sense.
Mhm.
They're at the combine, getting interviews, catching videos, writing stuff about it, running into Aaron Nagler, this kind of stuff. And so just, if you know who Joey is, and most people listening probably do, we all got to know him as a community from his Underage Packers podcast that he does with the famous Big B, and seeing him grow now into dipping his toes into the professional world, doing this stuff with other professional reporters who are there. It just makes my heart sing, Dawn. It just makes me so happy to see it. I think it's just the coolest. So huge shout out to our friend Joey.
Yes.
Kicking butt out there at the combine. Keep it up, man. That is amazing.
Yes, at the combine and at his college. And I've been
Mhm.
cheering him on with his work covering Mizzou. Is that how it goes? Mizzou?
That's how I always said it. Yeah.
Misery, Missouri. But yeah, when I saw the clips from Brian Gutekunst's time with just the local journalists, so Brian did his press event for everybody, and then he did a separate one for the local journalists, which is very kind and wonderful. I was like, that's Joey. Shut up. And I thought that was kind of slick that they put his little face in there. Oh my gosh, I just about died too with pride. Love that kid.
Died with
Go
pride.
Joey. Go Joey. Okay.
All right, so what do you have for your next one?
So my next one is best model, and this is Andrew Brandt on the Green Bay Packers being the model NFL franchise. And this is from the Inside Wisconsin show that we've mentioned a couple of times on this. It's about, I want to say 2 minutes, but it's worth listening. So let's take a listen to Andrew. Oops, here we go.
With the ascension of Jordan Love and the way they've done this year, there's been a lot of attention on this idea that maybe it is the right way to run things. And I just boil it down pretty simply. From Ron to Ted Thompson to Brian Gutekunst, from the board structure that allows football to do its thing and not get invested in it. I just think that slow and steady is the way. There's no quick fixes. Yes, we will step out and sign a Reggie White or a Charles Woodson at times, but it's draft and develop. It's trust your scouting. It's trust your coaches and make your coaches play and trust young players. And it's sign your core players to market extensions before they reach any cusp of free agency. It was a very simple plan, but simple isn't sexy. And sometimes these other teams get caught up in free agency or big names or marquee signings that don't work out. But, it is a unique structure where there is no owner, as I knew so well. John, I had an incredibly awe-inspiring autonomy there, but I didn't let it affect me. In other words, whether I did a contract for $5 million or $50 million, there was no one saying, hey, Andrew, that's too much or that's too little. I was trusted to know that. And I treated doing contracts for the Packers and managing the cap as really working for a public trust, where I was acting on behalf of these shareholders. And I felt a real responsibility, even though there's no owner, there's no I mean, again, the scouting staff didn't know my world. So I appreciated the autonomy. I don't think any person in my position in the NFL has that, because there's always someone over them. But I took it very seriously.
So I really loved that, and I loved whether you're a Packer fan or a fan of another team in the NFL or any sports organization. Packers model is quite unique, and it helped me appreciate what it was. I mean, back in the day when I first started watching football seriously, and of course being a Packers fan, becoming a Packers fan, my sister would always say, draft and develop. That's what, because I'd have questions. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? You know, and then learning, oh, there's a cap and there's a reason. And you can't, just because you're from a market where there might be a little bit more money, right? You're still spending the same amount as everybody else, which is a cool model. So learning all those things, and then, you know, looking back now and hearing Andrew Brandt, who's also a great follow on Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah. But talk from his perspective about it. It really, now it's like, yeah, okay, I'm there, and I'm so a fan of it. And now, especially now, with moving on from Aaron Rodgers, going to Jordan Love, doing so well last year, having for a moment at least the national coverage that the Packers are getting, and the appreciation for, yeah, maybe that is kind of a good thing, instead of always the hard criticism and the negativity and the it's just the Packers, they're different, we're not going to have it. So it's just kind of neat to appreciate why it works, why it's successful, what's so unique about it, just even from a business model. So that's why I liked that one, and I learned or relearned some things, and especially approaching the draft season, that is just going to help me be a better fan.
Love it. Yeah. Andrew Brandt is so smart, and you know, has so many interesting things to say. So hearing like him talk for like 2 minutes there, really good stuff. I loved that.
Oh, I'm glad. It's a long clip. And then I have another clip that ties right into this uniqueness of the Packers next. So after we hear your next superlative, Maddie.
Final superlative, you know, keeping this theme for my third superlative each week of being best draft content of the week. By the way, shout out to Brian Maffey, who does amazing draft content. And we'll be talking more about him in a subsequent week, I'm sure. But the thing this week that I wanted to shout out was so Ross Uglum's been doing this really great series of like one prospect like per day. I think every single day. I think he's doing weekends. I'm trying to remember if he is for sure. But suffice to say, like just like a, you know, 10 to 20 minute deep dive into like one prospect each day. So, you know, just kind of hearing some stuff about them, getting to know them better has been really fascinating. But the specific one I wanted to talk about, and the reason why I'm bringing him up this week, is because, you know, the online community, you know, and the national pundits, everyone's saying, you know, the guy who we're going to have is Cooper DeJean. You know, that's like the most Packersy Packer pick that ever Packered in the first round this year. Everyone's talking about Cooper DeJean. And so for Ross Uglum, he's like this player, I must say character. He's like this player for a very long time. He's saying, you know, he calls him the love of his life. And so, you know, the quality level of these things has been consistently high, but the one today for that, I think it was today, was extra high because he was so like excited and kind of almost like giddy, if you can imagine Ross Uglum giddy, that is, to talk about this player. So it was a lot of fun hearing him, you know, get excited about that and getting to know more about Cooper DeJean, because like so many of these characters, I did it again. So many of these players, that's, you know, that's so silly. So many of these players, well, basically are like characters in a way, you know, so like you get to know them better by hearing more of the stuff, by getting to know them, you know, from the sort of work people do talking about them. And it was good. It was a really good one. High watermark for Ross Uglum in this series. And I think Brian makes a really good point here in the chat. He says they want to take DeJean because everyone is mocking him to Green Bay. Lol. Indeed, Brian, lol. Yeah, that's exactly what's not going to happen. I know he'll get taken like 3 spots before we pick or something. Never going to happen. But boy, you know, getting to know more about him, I totally want him on the team. He sounds like he'd be a great fit. So
never say never.
Never say never until
say never.
Draft someone else. So yeah, that's my last one. Good work to Ross for that series, and especially for that particular episode.
Thank you, Ross. Can't wait to hear it Didn't hear it yet. Did not hear it yet. Partly because I'm now obsessed with volleyball. And so I think if you're listening to our show on a regular basis, you heard me mention the San Diego Mojo team, and I came across a really cool, and I'll promise after this week I will stop fangirling on Ronica Stone, but
Why? You have to stop. Whatever.
I'm really excited. But I came across an interview with Ronica, and and she talks about many things. I cut some parts out, and so I have a 2-part video audio. I took the video out, audio of some things that she had to say that I think as Packer fans and NFL fans and just sports fan in general, that we might appreciate. The first one is short and sweet. It's more specific about Jordan Love and Ronica, but some real pearls of wisdom from these young ones, some real pearls of wisdom. So I'm going to go ahead and share. Whoops. What did I just do? Share some of what I picked up from this video interview with, oh, by the way, from the Write It Down podcast.
I was going to ask.
So first of all, real quick, she likes to be called Ron.
In respect, I think because we're both athletes, we both know what each other is going through, which really helps. And we train together sometimes in the off season, going there. And I had just signed. It was funny because they had just posted my official signing post for their Instagram account. And then the next day, the Packers posted his official signing. I was like, we really...
Okay, so that's a little bit chopped up there, but what Ronica was saying is that she actually works out with Jordan Love sometimes.
Can you imagine? Oh man, that's so cool.
Yeah, there was some conversation about that. It was kind of fun. And then also about the symbiosis of their relationship. They knew each other from mutual friends, that kind of thing, but they basically became a couple during COVID, obviously, which is when Jordan Love was signed, which is when she was signed. And she was saying the Mojos post her signing. The next day, the Packers posted Jordan Love signing. Let me get this off the screen real quick. And then she shares some pearls of wisdom from that. So let's listen to those.
Huge. Specifically for Mojo and for the team and the organization that's growing here. Do you find yourself having a hard time to fight your pride? Like, how do you remain humble when all eyes are on you, whether it's because you're dating a famous quarterback or your notoriety in your own, profession? How do you find yourself being humble?
I really like the quote from Billie Jean King where she says, "Pressure is a privilege." And that helps me remain positive in like a lot of phases of my life. Pressure is only given to those who have earned it. And so when people say like, "Oh, you must be going through a lot," I'm like, I'm in such a cool position. Yeah, maybe you could think of it as stressful, like there are eyes on you, but like how cool is it that I'm at this point in my life? Like little me would be so excited, would never have ever have thought like I would be like playing in San Diego and being able to be like a franchise player and like living in, well, really little me would never have thought I would have been in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Again, like pressure is a privilege. And if you just like change the way, and it's hard, it's not going to happen like the flip of a switch. I remember like my sophomore year of college playing was really hard for me because I had such a good freshman year. And I was like, I need to be even better every single time. Like I kept putting it on myself. But when you think of like you're replacing a Hall of Fame quarterback, like you're in a city where it is the Packers. Like you hear Green Bay, like you fly in, the airport's covered in Packers. You're driving around and it's like the street names are from Packers legends. And you're in a position that you're going somewhere and people are expecting greatness out of you. Like it would be way different if you were to go to a different team where no one cares what you do. It's like, get us a win. Like, no, they're like Super Bowl this year now. Right. And that might be scary, but at the same time, again, like how cool that you're even in that situation to be spoken about, like, with those people behind you. And so
Yeah.
there's a privilege, and that's really my mindset when I go through like the tough times.
Yeah, of course. And which is a huge honor and privilege, and street names are going to be named after you, but watch it happen. But these other girls that are going to fill in the gaps in 10, 15 years, and, they're going to feel what your boyfriend's feeling, with Green Bay and whatever else, God has for you too. But you are creating a legacy, and you're paving the way for other people to fill that. And that's also an honor and a privilege to be able to do that. And you've seen both sides, with your dad having huge success and with your boyfriend having huge success, and you've had huge success. And now you're like, all right, let's take this to the next level for women's volleyball. And like, how fun is that? Like, I feel like you're in like the most fun time of your life. Like,
yeah, no, it's so cool.
This is it,
I really have something to promote the league, whether we're traveling to try on. Like, this is a Ren Athletics long sleeve, and it's so comfortable, but like being able to go there and try it on and feel it before that the league agreed to partner with them. I'm like, that's so cool that you care about our opinions. But like everything that we're doing, they want the players to be comfortable, and they want the players to like help build it, because we are the ones that are going to be at the forefront. And so it's really an honor, and we're all blessed to be in this position. I'm, again, like everything, it's a dream come true. I did say pressure is a privilege. I do love that quote. But also control the controllables. Mm-hmm. That's another thing when you're really going through something and you feel like everything's going wrong. I always go back to it, because it's like, did I do everything I could in that moment? Is there anything else I could have done? No? Then stop worrying about it. Like, control what you can control, and the rest will figure it out.
So I loved that her two write it downs were pressure is a privilege and control the controllables, and the way that they pivoted her career as one of as the first, really, along with her team members and the rest of the league members on the other teams. But this is, can you imagine? I mean, this is like Super Bowl I. This is like NFL when it was first. Yeah, that's why I'm so excited. I just, it's so unbelievable that San Diego got one of the teams. And I mean, it's not surprising because it's volleyball, but women's volleyball, but it's just really gives me chills. And to hear that, and to hear her career starting when Jordan's was starting, it really kind of gives me a deeper appreciation of these two young ones, and how balanced they have to be with their lives, and how much they can teach and share, and they are willing to, because they're pretty public facing on their Instagram and that kind of thing. So really cool lessons to learn about life and about sports. And I just thought it was extra special. So, and the fact that, and I loved how the interviewer said, and street names will be named after you too. Yeah. So pretty cool. The whole interview was great. I did my best at doing some clips there, a lot of clips there. So hopefully it was pretty seamless. So yeah, what'd you think?
Yeah, the fact that she seems so grounded comes as no surprise, because Jordan Love seems so grounded. So they just a grounded couple. I love that. Athletes at the top of their game, and seemingly just real people. So that's amazing. I love hearing that, and those ideas about what it was, control the controllable and pressure's a privilege.
Yeah,
that's good stuff. I like that a lot.
Beautiful. Well, as promised, so those were my three superlatives, and Matt did his three. So we're going to pivot over now, and right on time, because there's going to be a San Diego Mojo game right now. So I'm going to watch. But we will. We're going to watch with you the interview that we did with J.R. Radcliffe. So let me see if I can remember where I put that. And I just realized it's like, where is that? Hello.
Well, you're finding that to set it up a little bit. J.R. Radcliffe is at the Combine right now, covering it for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. So he wasn't available to talk with us tonight because he's quite busy. But he graciously let us have some of his time on Sunday afternoon, I believe it was, right? Sunday afternoon. And we had a wonderful chat with him, which Dawn probably has ready right now to show.
I have it ready right now. And we're going to pop off of the screen, and we'll be back as soon as the interview is over.
Enjoy.
So, hello to JR. We're super glad you're with us today and taking some time out of your busy schedule before you go to the combine. We can't wait to hear from you about that after on the flip side. But how are you doing today? What's going on in your life besides that?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I appreciate it. I said that I would do this show a while ago, and then my schedule kept getting in the way, and I'm really sorry about that. I'm glad we finally get to chat. But yeah, right now, as people are hearing this, I like you mentioned, I'll be in Indianapolis for some of the combine stuff, which is very unique for me. And that's not a normal thing in my job description. So it's going to be an unusual week for me. I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Oh, so your first time at the combine, huh?
Yes, definitely. I've never been. I don't really my job as trending sports reporter, which I'm sure we'll talk about. I don't leave very much. Like I'm very seldom out covering things, and when I am, that's because somebody needed a replacement essentially. And that's really actually what's happening here, but I'm usually kind of just in Milwaukee full time. So this is a little different for me. I've been doing that a lot lately because I got to go to the Packers playoff games, but again, that was completely unusual and unique. So I've had a very good time. Been a lot of an uptick in Packers coverage lately.
Well, in terms of like filling in for people, of course, you were filling in for Cassidy after she left with the Green 19 podcast. And that was a lot of fun hearing you on there. What was that like working with Spoon and with Ryan Wood?
Yeah, we're still doing it too. In the off season, we'll have a few more, and I'll have some
nice.
during the combine as well. So I love those guys. I mean, like they're colleagues. It's not that, I've known them. They live in Green Bay, so I don't see them very often, being a guy who stays pretty much in Milwaukee. But they're fantastic. I really respect our Packers coverage has been really good, and I've learned a lot from them over time, and certainly recently. So it is cool. It's cool to parachute in on Packers because they have a very good thing going.
Nice.
That's awesome. Okay, so by the way, I'm almost from Milwaukee originally. I'm from Racine, so practically
Close enough.
neighbors.
We'll count it. Yeah, I
I've
think when you
been,
go as far as California, then Racine absolutely counts as Greater Milwaukee. The further out you get,
That's right.
the more your bubble increases. I mean, I think in California, actually, like Green Bay is essentially Outer Banks of Milwaukee. I think we can even go that far. So
Sure. So, okay, before we start with the interview, which I cannot wait to do, I just have to ask you, what are those little figures in your window behind you?
Oh yeah, this is. I am not. I have not staged anything in my house where it's like this is the place I sit for podcasting. So I don't actually do very much video here. So it is not staged well. Those are bobbleheads. I do have a lot of bobbleheads down here. Those are actually the worst of my bobbleheads. That is the shelf of shame. It is Brewers bobbleheads who are not the best players and possibly, maybe didn't need a bobblehead made out of them. So they are up there. They get the most sunlight. So maybe I should rethink the shelf of shame. I will not flip my computer around, but you can see you can see there's like a Hall of Fame shelf that I'm looking at, the Hall of Very Good shelf. The guys behind me are not the best, but I won't zoom in. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. Like they probably know who they are, but
It's okay.
Well,
I love it.
Being like in the windowsill like that, they're getting the most sun, which also means they're getting faded the most. So it's like, yeah, you're taking almost kind of like the worst care of them. So appropriate. It's a good place for them, actually.
Yeah, I've got a weird like halfway relationship with bobbleheads where I don't like keep them in the box. I'm not neurotic about it, but I do collect a lot of them. But then I put them on display. They get dusty. My kids play down here. Several of them are missing limbs. They're certainly missing bats that they came with or other things. It's all baseball bobbleheads, so it's not. But
Okay.
they're in various states of disrepair. I'm not the best collector, I guess I would say.
Well, the best collector, maybe not the best preservationist, but that's okay.
Yeah, that might
because
be.
you're enjoying your bobbleheads.
That's how I see it too. Yes.
Well, the way we love to get warmed up with our interviews, you may know, you may not, but here we go. You're going to find out. Because I'm sure most of our audience knows our illustrious guest, J.R. Radcliffe. But we start with your Twitter. So your Twitter reads J.R. Radcliffe, trending sports reporter. J.R. Radcliffe I took this bio from the journal. J.R. Radcliffe is a Milwaukee Journal Sentinel sports reporter capturing social stories and trending local sports topics. He worked for the paper or its community branches since 2004. covering prep sports for 14 years. He hosts the organization's podcasts covering the Milwaukee Brewers and Milwaukee Bucks, I'm jealous, and hosts live blogs for Wisconsin Badgers football games, among other high-profile sporting events. I learned a lot. I did not know you did that. So it's Twitter at JR Radcliffe, and again, trending sports reporter for at Journal Sentinel, host of MJS hashtag Brewers and hashtag Bucks podcast, lover of hashtag Peak TV and Pepsi. I miss the 90s so much, you guys. We're going to talk about that. You hail from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. JSonline.com is your website. So are you born and raised in Milwaukee, JR?
So there's a little bit of a scandal there. I am born and raised in Wisconsin. Yes, I've lived in several different parts of the state. But when my friends discovered, because I am very much pro Wisconsin in my work, in my personality, all things Wisconsin, they learned that I was not in fact born in Wisconsin. I was actually born out in Pennsylvania. I was there for a few months as a young child before my family moved to Wisconsin. My mother from Wisconsin, my father also from Illinois, but also Wisconsin. Like he went to high school in Wisconsin. So like I'm not a Pennsylvanian. But other than that, if I someday have a Wikipedia page, it will confuse people because I spent very little time in Pennsylvania. I spent the majority of my life in Wisconsin. I've lived in Northwoods, Wisconsin. I've lived in the Fox Valley, which I assume most people know is the area just south of Green Bay. And then I have lived in Milwaukee as an adult and even a couple summers when I was in college. So this is definitely home. And Wisconsin is 100% home. Well, 99% home because I was technically born somewhere else. I couldn't even tell you anything about the city where I was born. I maybe a few things. I could tell you a few things, but I could not get you around there. I couldn't get you to the nearest subway restaurant anywhere. And I've not been back more than one time. So yes, that is my story.
Nice. So
I love it.
A long career covering sports. What would you say is like one of your favorite memories from all those years covering all those sports?
Wow. Wasn't expecting the big picture stuff, the retrospective so quickly. The times where I have gotten to do what I've been doing lately, which is fill in for people and travel and do some of those things, are definitely fun. You know, I covered prep sports for a long time, which is high school athletics, primarily in the Milwaukee area. I think, you know, had a pretty good system there, pretty good routine, loved parts of that job so much. But that doesn't take you anywhere outside of Wisconsin. You know, it's all high school sports. So the few times that I have done that, which includes covering the wild card game that the Brewers were in 2019 in Washington, D.C., that's probably the most fun I've had in this job. Brewers did not win that game, which is a bummer, but the time I had that week, those couple days was incredible. And I mean, seriously, I had never been to an NFL playoff game at all before as a fan or otherwise, until I went to the Dallas Cowboys game and then again the San Francisco game. I mean, I am kind of on cloud nine. Like this is a job for a lot of people, but for me, it's like, holy smokes, I just went to two playoff games in two different parts of the country in back-to-back weeks. And I mean, it was wild. It's crazy that I got to do that. So even though that's a huge recency bias, that's about as fun as it gets professionally for me. I mean, I love what I do. I have a great job. I'm so lucky. Love this gig. Love that it's pretty consistent hours. I mean, I have freedom. I have everything you could want in a job. Great supervisors, etc. And the travel is not something I guess I would want to do all the time, but it was really fun for the time I got to do it.
Nice. Yeah, a good job that you're good at. I gotta say, we really enjoy the work that you do, JR. And I'll add real fast too, since it wasn't in your Twitter bio. The way how you first got on my radar, of course, was from Reporting is Eligible, which is one of my favorite podcasts, which you'll be returning to eventually, right?
Oh yeah. Yep. I kind of like to think of myself as just the permanent guest on Reporting is Eligible with my friends Paul and Matt, and have a really good time. That's like it's not part of my job, obviously. It's sort of halfway. Try to lend a little bit of expertise, but even though football is probably the least of my sports expertise, but I try to help where I can, and hopefully add to the conversation a little bit. Have a lot of fun with that.
Oh, you do, and you're also easily the best like question reader of the three of you guys, I'd say. So it's good that like you get to lend your voice for that. No, it's a great podcast. I love it a lot. You know, obviously I've talked about it a lot on this show. So
Yeah, I have a
For
lot of
sure.
fun. Those are guys I met essentially online. Like I've never met Matt in person,
Mhm.
and Paul I have. You know, for a while we were recording in person together when we were doing the early years of reporting as eligible.
Oh.
But yeah, like just really cool dudes that I met through Packers Twitter essentially. Like there's,
Yeah.
I guess I don't. There's not really anywhere to say it. It's been really cool.
Yeah, cool.
Well, we love that. So back on your Twitter bio, can you tell us a little bit more about what makes Pepsi better than Coke?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with Coke. It's Coke, I'm sure for me is like it would be for any normal human being, and that it's fine to have every once in a while, maybe a cold Coke on a summer day or whatever. But that would only be if the Pepsi is not available, in my opinion. For me personally, I don't know
Mhm.
what it is. It's just the perfect concoction of sugar and deliciousness, and I am way too attached to Pepsi. It is shaving years off my life. I have tried many times to cut it out of my diet. I have succeeded at times, failed at others. Right now, I can tell you I am way in the failure zone, but I do love it. I've loved it since I was a little kid, or not a little kid. My parents weren't feeding me Pepsi, but since I was old enough to start making my own, decisions on beverages,
Mhm.
it has been something that I've always kind of loved. So I can't explain why. I'm not an evangelist. I'm not going to try to convince people that Pepsi is better than Coke or better than any other drink. It's not like that. I just love it so much. I really do.
That's a really mature take, to not be like, oh, Pepsi's better than Coke and y'all are stupid for thinking something different. 'Cause I
Yeah.
feel like that's a trap a lot of people fall into, is like getting really like passionate about like this thing is better than this thing when it's just a matter of personal preference. And I
Right.
think especially with Pepsi and Coke, since we grew up in the cola wars, we all lived through the cola wars of the 80s, that was a particularly divisive thing. I remember a good friend of mine was like super allied with Coke and would get in fights with other kids who said Pepsi was better. Like, it doesn't need
Oh,
to be
wow.
like that. Yeah,
Wow.
no, he was intense. He was intense about it. It was like became part of his personality. It's like, dude, man, you gotta chill.
I feel like I would be just on the not the wrong side of history because I love what I love, but like there are so many more cokeheads out there. Oh God, I said cokeheads. That's not what I meant.
There's got to be a better way to say
There
that.
probably are a lot more than
Well,
the
yeah.
people who drink Pepsi. I don't know. There are so many people out there who prefer Coke to Pepsi. I would lose that battle. I am a man on an island, but that is just what it is for me.
All right.
I appreciate that.
Matt, do you have a preference?
Oh, I like Coke better,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not like definitely not going to be getting in fights about it.
No.
That's for sure.
No. I was just curious how zealous you were about that. It was in your bio, so I had to ask. I like Coke
very
too.
important to me.
I feel like Pepsi is a little more tangy, but not in the mouth
agree.
as much as in the throat.
I think that's a fair take. For me, Coke works the opposite way. It's not tangy enough. It feels like almost dry in my throat and in my mouth, and I don't like that. I don't like that experience. Again, like Coke with ice, if it's like a hot day or whatever, and I've had a bunch of water and I'm kind of feeling something else, like Coke's great. Coke's fine. But if Pepsi didn't exist, I would be much skinnier. I can say that for sure. Probably going to live longer if Pepsi didn't exist.
All right. Well, Matt mentioned, and in your Twitter, you are, and in your biography on the paper, you're listed as a trending sports reporter. So can you elaborate, and of course the social media part of it too, but can you elaborate a little bit more about what is meant by that in your industry?
Yeah, of course. And when I started, it was such a new position and really a new concept. And that wasn't that long ago. I really started this job in 2018. And I was embarrassed by the title. I would be like, it's such a dumb title, you guys. But like, basically it's just, and this is still true. The actual explanation is still true. It's really just what I think of as between the beats. I am not following any one team closely. I'm not going to games all the time, although I do sometimes, but I'm not, I'm trying to follow things that people didn't care about that fall outside of just what happens between the lines. And I think for a long time, and not really the fault of the newspapers, but sports sections of newspapers took themselves, first of all, very seriously, and they only focused on what they have always focused on and the things that they felt people should care about, and then ignoring things like, what's going on with like where are the broadcasts, or what's going on with like Bally Sports Wisconsin and all the broadcasts, or Diamond Sports is in bankruptcy and things like that. What about weird Twitter feuds? Like what's going on? Is the manager, what did he mean by this? Or what did the former Packers player or former player mean when he said this thing that was potentially, inflammatory at a press conference? Some of it is very fun. Some of it is very stupid. Some of it is not stupid. Like some of it is really meaningful and helpful. I do a lot of historical deep dives. Okay, the Packers just shut out an opponent. Here are all the times they've shut out an opponent in the last 20 years. Or, it's a lot of lists, a lot of BuzzFeed sensibilities in there for people who are familiar with BuzzFeed. I won't say they invented the format, but they definitely worked it, perfected it to some degree. Anything that people are interested in that isn't strictly, about talking to the athletes and the players and the coaches and analyzing what happens on the field. I do some of that too. I feel like I need to be equipped to do as much of it as I can in terms of everything that sports does. But I'm whatever else happens. And we've had a lot of success since 2018. Like we've really found a way to hit some things that we were not doing, and people are reading about it. And it comes back to you mentioned the live blogs, the Badgers, or even big Brewers games or Bucks playoff games. I've done live blogs for all of those things, and those do really well also. Again, things that we really weren't doing, 10 years ago. So just anything that comes up, that's wherever I can help, that's what I try to do.
Yeah, I love that. The idea that that's even like a thing a person could be, employed to do, to fill in those cracks and get those things that, are more, I don't know, like the of the minute kind of things. And like you mentioned the deep dives on the historical stuff. Dawn highlighted last week the article that you wrote about the first Super Bowl, the recording of the first Super Bowl. And that's you wouldn't necessarily get that kind of information without somebody like you doing that work. And I love that, because that was such a fascinating article, for example.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was a really fun one, definitely.
Yeah, some of it is straight aggregation. It's just other people wrote about this and everyone's talking about it. So let's give some context. Okay, this is why people are talking about it. And then bring in maybe some other resources. I write about, and it's not strict journalism. No one is going to say it is. I'm trying to focus for the Wisconsin sports fan why they should be interested in something and what might interest them. Maybe they didn't see these articles in other places, and I can bring them in. I do a lot of NFL draft. Like, here's what all the mock drafts are saying. I've got 10 of them. It's a lot of linking and a lot of kind of posting what they're saying, but it gives it a central hub so that people can just look at, okay, I don't care about the other guys, I just care about the Packers. Tell me what the people are thinking that they're going to select in the NFL draft. So those are the types of things that I can get into. Yeah,
there's a lot of value in that. I think, as a consumer of Packers content, I think there's a lot of value in that. I also want to add that, I'm glad to hear this explanation of what this is, because I mean, for real, like I've always thought it was like a tongue-in-cheek, like I'm trending, I'm a sports reporter. When you said that, like, getting this from Ruben Wauwatosa, trending sports reporter, I was like, that's kind of a funny thing to say, but no, it's actually like what your job is. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes. Yes. Not that I am personally trending as a sports reporter, but rather I am covering the trending topics. Anything that people are talking about that isn't, again, strictly covered by the beat coverage is something that I try to dip my toe into.
Love it. Very cool.
That's great. That's great. And I appreciate the aggregate type articles that the Super Bowl one, of course, the Packers played, because I probably never would have known about that information had you not brought it up. So I wouldn't have necessarily, because I follow you, I follow the Journal, I wouldn't necessarily have known about this interview with Devin and that crazy story. So I was really appreciative. Yeah. So the trending sports reporter, is that how you sort of float between some of your coverage? Is that the nature? Because you do tend to, your assignments will float between sports, including different teams, Badgers, Brewers, Bucks, Packers, etc. Okay, so that's where the floatiness comes from.
Yeah. I mean, jack of all trades sort of thing. I've covered Badgers, Bucks, Brewers, Packers games, Marquette games. It's wherever I'm needed, I'm happy. I fill in a lot, but when I'm not filling in, I'm kind of just working a pretty steady not 9 to 5, but like 7 to 3. And there are other aspects that go into it. The hosting of the podcast takes does take a little bit of time. So that's something that I'm focused on. I write we have a daily briefing newsletter, which isn't just sports, it's all over the place. So I write one of those a week. I run a morning meeting that looks at trending topics, again, not just sports. So I do have my hand in kind of everything, which is good. Like I like being involved, and I go into the newsroom, and I try to stay up to date with what's going on pretty much during the week. But despite like the floating nature of it, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill hours wise job. It's pretty much I'm working when everyone else is working, so I can't really ask for more. Like I get to hang out in sports land all day and write and do fun stuff, and then I still get to go home to my family. It's a pretty sweet situation.
It's a good
That's
deal,
fantastic.
for sure.
And you're
Oh,
learning so much. Yeah, and just that you're learning so many different types of things. You're not just on one sport. You're not just on one team. You're building your own. It's probably more interesting, I would think, and because you're learning more.
Absolutely.
But yeah. Sorry, Matt, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Oh, you're fine. I was going to say that you mentioned it also in the Twitter bio that about the 90s, right? And of course, that comes up a lot on Reporting is Eligible about your love for 90s music. So I'd say just if you don't mind me throwing this in there, maybe top 3 90s albums. What would you say for that?
Oh, top 3 90s albums. Oh no, Matt.
When I say top 1, that's too hard. Maybe give it a little pool to go for. So.
Oh, Matt, I don't know if I can do this justice, because I can't do the top best, because
sure.
I will get it wrong. So I can only do the ones that I truly, truly love. The Yield album by Pearl Jam is my favorite album by them. I also really love the Versus album by Pearl Jam. So I don't want to make it just about Pearl Jam. There's a lot more to the 90s than just that. But those 2 albums, like I wore those things out, man. Back when albums were a thing, I absolutely wore those out. So now I got to think of like a third one. I mean, I really liked the Garbage self-titled album. Garbage has some Wisconsin connections.
That's right.
It was a big, yes, Butch Vig. I mean, pretty much the whole band except Shirley Manson.
Yeah.
Even though Shirley is an honorary Wisconsinite as a member of Garbage. So that is not one that would make a lot of people's lists, I imagine, but that was a very important album to me. But I also, as I'm saying that, I'm going to put Pearl Jam's 2 albums at number 2.
Okay.
Give me Garbage at 3, and then number 1 is Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette. That album was incredible. I still think about it. It is. I can't believe she wrote it as young as she did. It set the bar for a lot of things. That might not be what people expect, because I do love me some guitars, some heavy guitars. I love me some grunge, but the Alanis album, that one still hits pretty hard. So that's got to be my number 1.
I mean, those are great picks. And the way you started, I was like, okay, so like grunge, indie stuff, and then sharp turn, Alanis Morissette. Yeah, like, oh yeah, but it's really great. It's a great album. I mean, totally, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I love some dad rock, of course I do. But the Alanis album, I had in many iterations. I had it on tape, on 2 sides, not the whole album. One of the songs cut off. I didn't even know there was a hidden track for a couple of years because that wasn't on the tape. I had a first CD. I wore that out. I needed a second CD. I lost it. Got a third CD. Like it's that one was really, really important to me. Also Bush, 16 Stone. That's another one that I lost multiple times and had to get back again. That's also a very good one for me. More dad rock.
Love it. I love those. So you mentioned back to your Twitter, and sorry, it's really hard to pivot off of all that music because now I feel like we should talk about culture instead. But
Wait,
I mean,
Don,
sports is culture.
Sorry, Don, I'm gonna jump in. There's one thing I should say before we move off of that. I'm really sorry, Don. It's funny because like people might be hearing little stuff in the background here. It's because my kids are up here doing some stuff, and my kids actually have been really into grunge music lately. In fact, my older kid has said that Nirvana is their favorite band. So just want to throw that out there before we get away from it too far. So
it's happening. So the culture has come back around. 90s music is once again in. I'm happy about that. I'm happy about that.
Me too.
I bet you are. I bet you are. No, that's great. That's a good reminder. That because you mentioned that a couple of shows ago, Matt. So that's which I think is just hilarious. But a lot of my nieces and nephews will love David Bowie. So for me, it's just like that's just amazing. They love Bowie. That's the music I grew up with. So Okay, so you mentioned prep sports. So is that basically what I'm thinking prep school. I've never heard of prep sports before.
Yeah, that's
What
just
is that?
shorthand for high school sports, like preparation for
Okay.
college or whatever. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I did for a long time. There was a community chain of newspapers, which was my first full-time job. And I strictly, I had a few schools that were signed to me. I covered all their sports teams, football, basketball, baseball, sure, but also soccer, tennis, track, softball, cross country, swimming, anything that they did, we covered it. And we had a paper that primarily catered to those communities, several different papers that catered to those communities. Over time, that operation got consolidated pretty badly over the next 10 14 years, really. Got to a point where we moved downtown into the Journal Sentinel newsroom. The operation at that point was not as independent as it had once been. It was kind of under the Journal Sentinel umbrella more closely at that point. And that's how I ended up moving around and moving into this other job as well. You start to meet people in the newsroom and stuff. So I'm actually pretty glad that it worked out for me personally. But unfortunately, we had a really amazing operation. We had 8 people full-time covering high school sports in Greater Milwaukee, covering 40 some schools, but we were covering every school in a really deep level. And now we don't. There's just nothing like that anymore. So I,
Right.
little sad, little nostalgic for that, but
Yeah.
but obviously I get to do some fun, higher profile stuff now.
Yeah.
I bet. I remember. Well, first of all, I remember when the Sentinel and the Journal were 2 separate papers, right?
Yeah.
Weren't
Yes.
they?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so my brother was really good in high school sports, and I remember we would always read the articles about him in the paper. I think it was
Mhm.
Sundays when they would cover his games. So remember those days? A lot of those things have fallen by the wayside, haven't they?
Mhm.
So you do a lot. And did you say you dip your toes into regular, like non-sports news as well sometimes if there's something trending,
Yeah, a little
or
bit.
just awareness? Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I said, we do this daily briefing newsletter every weekday that does not stick just to sports. In fact, it seldom deals with sports. So it's mostly some of our bigger news and feature stories. So I'm not writing those stories per se, but I'm, compiling them. Again, more aggregation, I guess, but this time
Right.
of ourselves. And then I will go into, where applicable, like if something interests me, or if certainly during COVID when sports shut down, I was almost exclusively not doing sports. There was a lot of other news to deal with. So I'd be helping with our live coverage and various things. And then, the biggest story I've ever written happened in 2022 when Netflix. This is a dark chapter, unfortunately, but Netflix came out with a mini series about Jeffrey Dahmer. So I did a series of stories on like what's real and what's fiction in the show. Here's what we know about the victims, the real victims. Here's the lot where his house, the apartments were, where he lived, which is now a vacant lot. I mean, those stories caught on unlike anything I've written before because it had a national audience and a sustained national audience because the show was very successful. So again, it's not like fun to talk about necessarily, but occasionally pop culture or something, I might go do a little bit of that as well. But the vast majority of what I do is at the very least sports adjacent.
Right.
Or
Right.
or very Milwaukee specific.
Oh yeah, I mean yes,
Yeah.
I am. That is all my content is Wisconsin or Milwaukee specific.
Yep.
Yes.
Right. Well, that's interesting to me because I have another show that I do that is, I'm like the potential juror, and I watch trials, and so I do pay attention to, unfortunately, crime. It has become therapeutic for me for a long story, but so that's kind of fascinating. There are people who do that all the time now. If there's a documentary on Netflix or whatever about one of the trials that we're interested in, we'll watch and then go to that channel and chat about, oh, they got that wrong. And that's a thing. That's like a whole thing now.
For sure.
with true crime documentaries, because they get a lot of things wrong. So that's interesting. Very interesting. So okay, so of all of those things, which is just amazing, I'm kind of jealous. I like all that diversity that you have. So what is your favorite thing to do? Sports reporting, TV, YouTube, like video, podcasting, live streaming, writing. We already know that you watch other sports. Do you have a favorite sports? What's your favorite of all of those things?
Yeah, I grew up a baseball kid, so baseball is my first love, and that's, even though my relationship with the teams have changed a little bit, just like emotionally, I grew up a huge Brewers fan. So essentially, I am covering the team that I grew up with and grew up loving, and it's true for the Packers and the Bucks and the Badgers too, and Marquette even. Like I was into those teams growing up as well. So that's part of the dream come true. I mean, it's cool to follow these specific teams because I have so much history with them as somebody who grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. Like I have a pretty good base of knowledge, certainly not as much as many of our readers, but it's great to cover the things that I have already been invested in for years and years, and that's made my job obviously a lot easier. I do like the podcasting piece of it. I really enjoy that. It is a little labor intensive more than other things that I do, but it is still, that's the part that I really, really love. We do Microbrew, the Brewers podcast. I have a lot of fun with that one. The Bucks podcast, we've pulled back a little bit, the Point Forward podcast, because it wasn't finding a huge audience. So we started doing a little bit more with the video side and then doing the podcasts a little bit more irregularly, but I still really love those. They'll ramp up if the Bucks go to the playoffs. We'll get to do a little bit more of that. With the Brewers one, I'm able to get a lot of guests, including players, able to go to the games and cover the games and talk to players or coaches or whatever. And I enjoy that aspect of it as well. That's really fun. It's fun to get outside the office and do some of the not run of the mill things that I normally do. But writing in general is definitely why I got into this. Like I love writing. I love writing, I love writing on deadline. I love writing fast. I love trying to, tell stories. I'm a huge, I love storytelling. So it just leans into everything about this job leads into my sensibilities. I like the podcasting best, but I really like it all. It's really, it's just, again, it's a great gig. And, I don't love every story I'm writing or working on, but I do love the idea that I can kind of write about whatever I want. When I wake up tomorrow on Monday, I don't really know what I'm going to write about. It could be anything, it could be a breaking weird story, or it could be that the Brewers trade for, acquire somebody. Now you want to do like a bio of that person and kind of let people know who this person is. Or it could be that the, Packers cut David Bakhtiari. Well, now it's like recounting the great moments of David Bakhtiari's career and what, maybe possible destinations for him or things like that. There's always something popping up that I didn't know about that morning. And I think that's a really, really cool. I really dig that about this job.
I love hearing you talk about this because it just sounds like the joy it seems to bring you, like the enthusiasm you have for it. Like just hearing anybody talk about their job like that is just so much fun. You mentioned that podcasting is the most labor intensive. Is that because you have to like line up schedules and that kind of stuff, or is there like more to it that you see as being like labor intensive?
Yeah, I don't mean to make it sound like it's a chore. It's just there's the recording, which is a pure hour of recording or 45 minutes or whatever, and then there's the editing part of it, which is made much easier by some of the, like StreamYard, for example. Has made that a lot easier, but there's still some editing that goes into it. There's the putting it where it needs to go, uploading it to YouTube, uploading it to the podcast software, all that stuff just kind of works together to make it. It can be 2 hours per podcast, depending on how things go. So that's just there's not many projects that take me that long. Many of them do, but that just it just eats up a little bit of time where I'm kind of focused on one thing. Otherwise, but no complaints. It's still really fun, and I really I still love that part of it.
That makes a lot of sense. I will say a lot of that sort of like behind the scenes labor Dawn does. So I guess I kind of forget about it sometimes. So props to Dawn for all the work she puts into it outside of just the actual recording time.
Hey,
yeah, it's true.
you,
and
Matt.
Shout out to Paul because he does reporting as eligible, and I don't have to worry about any of that. So
yeah. In these days we've switched over. We're doing an actual video recording of your interview right now. But we're primarily a podcast, and now we're like, well, let's publish to YouTube. Why not? Because we're I like
Yep.
to. We're looking at each other. We're there anyway. Do you find that videos are more like what you're gravitating to because you're getting more
Yes.
viewership that way? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it isn't even so much more viewership because some of our videos don't do great or anything, but it's just different viewers. You're hitting people. Truthfully, I don't think I appreciated, because it isn't part of my personal routine, how many people find you through YouTube. And I know that it's a younger
Mhm.
it skews younger, but I was surprised at the amount of interaction and the amount of people who found, especially the Green 19 podcast. They
Yeah.
find you on, they find you on YouTube, and that's cool.
Yeah.
I that's great. You gotta, you can't be a complete slob anymore, I guess, where you have to actually be a little look at some approximation of your best on camera, but it's still, obviously, I mean, you see behind me, it's not like not like we're going above and
Yeah.
beyond to create the perfect milieu, however I say that word. So yeah, it's it is a new audience. We've been doing a lot more of that.
Very cool. Good to be able to catch all the different people, the different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
I've been tending to watch Green 19 there, even when you don't have the video part, and it's just.
Mhm.
I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts on YouTube. I don't necessarily sit and watch. Yeah, it's cool. It's nice
Yeah.
to have that. Oh, I love that. That's podcasting is your favorite. So, your favorite sport then is baseball. I get it. I
Yes.
gather.
Yeah, my favorite
Yeah.
sport as a sport is volleyball. That's something that I followed pretty closely in college, believe it or not.
Really?
But so yes, Wisconsin becoming an elite volleyball team has been very nice to follow. That's I have a hard time not being a fan when I'm watching volleyball. I really, really love volleyball, but so I don't love baseball maybe as a concept to the same degree, but I love Major League Baseball. That's my favorite sort of league to follow.
Well, Dawn has picked up a big fandom for the local women's volleyball professional team, right, Dawn?
Oh, very
Yeah,
good.
San Diego has their first professional. Well, a lot of cities do right now because
Yeah.
the Women's
Ronica
Volleyball
Stone.
Federation. Exactly. So we have
Exactly.
Ronica, but we also have a local Carlsbad native on our team. And her name is Morgan. What's her last name? Morgan Lewis. She's fantastic, and we have several players. I wanted to go Friday night to the home opener, their very first game, but I couldn't because of my little health situation and all that. But I did watch, and the thing about volleyball is you can't even hardly blink. It's just constant. I've always loved volleyball, playing it, watching it on the beach. We have a lot of beach volleyball competition here too, year round, and so it's just a really fun sport. But I'm excited because they won, because they hadn't won. They've been I think they played their first couple games on the road, so they hadn't had a home game yet. And a lot of people were already writing them off and all that. It's way too soon, but yeah, it was great. And I have and one of my Packer Twitter friends is also now addicted to it. She watched with me. I wanted her to come and watch it, go to the game with me. I invited a few people actually, but it's a good thing because I would not have been able to go. So do you watch women's or men's volleyball or all of the above? Or
yeah, just primarily women's volleyball. The college is on TV a lot.
Yeah.
Men's volleyball, and I've covered, I covered high school volleyball as well. That was my favorite high school sport to cover. Boys volleyball is fun, but that it is just a hitting contest. It's like the biggest, strongest. There's very few rallies. There's and I'm sure there are people out there who follow men's volleyball who would disagree with me, but for my aesthetic taste, it's not the same level of I guess like gameplay as it would be in women's volleyball. So not as much strategy. It's just set the big fella and maybe he hits it out of bounds. That's it.
Yeah. Not as exciting. Yeah, the teamwork is just beautiful with women's volleyball. It's just so neat to watch. Okay, 3 more questions. So this one's multiple part.
2 more written questions. That is
multiple parts. So it's I guess ABC sort of. How invested are you in the upcoming NFL draft / Packers draft? Who is your go-to draft content creator if you have one or three? And what are you most anxious about for the Packers draft, if any?
Huh. Okay. So how invested am I? I mean, I'm going to the combine, so I will at least I'll hopefully be gathering some information and learning a little bit more about some of these prospects. But and the draft is something that I've always loved. I was a kid cutting out lists of players out of the newspaper, out of the Journal Sentinel, and highlighting them when they got picked and kind of keeping track of which players were available. This is pre-internet. I love the draft. I love following it. I won't say though that translated into a deep knowledge about which college players are going to translate to the pros. I couldn't tell you a lot of that stuff, and I truly just rely on other people, honestly, to tell me who which guys, because I watch guys in college in football, and I think, wow, that guy's going to be one of the top 10 picks in the draft, and he's like barely getting drafted in the 7th round. So I don't know if I have that eye that could tell you who's good or who fits. So this stage, I'm not going to get too invested in which guy I think the Packers should take, because truthfully, my knowledge, I don't know. I don't know who the best guy is. I don't know who the best options are. I know what position groups they need, and I don't know for sure if, I don't know if Cooper DeJean, who could be a cornerback or a safety, I have no idea where he'd be better served, and I have no idea if he'd fit the Packers. Some people think he would, so that's good enough for me. The content creator I'd go to, Dane Brugler over The Athletic is the most thorough and the just incredible volume of information. That's usually where I start. But I love like the Ringers draft coverage. I really like, even just like, ESPN and CBS, like there's some great draft coverage. When it comes to Packers draft coverage, I tell you, the people I trust the most are the guys at Acme Packing Company that I've gotten to know, like Paul Newton, the guy I do a podcast with. I really, if he tells me something, I believe it. If Tyler Brook tells me that Edger and Cooper, the linebacker, is going to be awesome, and Packers should absolutely take a look at him in the 2nd round if they can get him there. All right, now I'm thinking about Edger and Cooper. Now I want to hear what he has to say at the combine, because I trust Tyler Brook, and then Tex Western and those guys, they just know so much about this stuff. So, a lot of people are smarter than me. A lot of people are way smarter than me. So I'm happy to go to I go to a lot of them, but those are the guys that I guess I know them, so I should trust them more to some degree. And then remind me what part 3 was of this question.
Which position are you most anxious about for the Packers draft? Do you have any anxiety?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, anxiety too strong, because I don't know if I feel much of any anxiety for the Packers, but I think the safety group, from everything I can glean, not only is it clearly the Packers one of their biggest weaknesses, if not their biggest, the group in this draft, there isn't a lot there. It's just not a very deep class. So that might not necessarily work to their detriment, because maybe they go with a safety in the later rounds and get somebody who's just as good as somebody they could have used a 2nd or 3rd round pick on. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to solve their problems that way. So I think if they're going to go through free agency, where it sounds like they might be a little more active, especially with the salary cap now increased, I'm fascinated to know what they're going to do with that.
Yeah.
That feels like a free agency issue at this point in my mind.
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, I don't want to say I have anxiety around the draft, but I would be right in the same boat with you the way you said that. But one thing I have to disagree with you about, JR, is you said all these people are smarter than you. Now that they just cover that particular aspect of the sports world more than you do, is all it is. And shout out to speaking of the Acme Packing Company, people talking about the draft, the weekly show that Justice and Tyler Brook are doing has been really great so far. Really been enjoying that. So props to them for that.
Yeah, those guys are excellent.
Yeah. Good. I like it. Acme for Wisconsin draft is probably heavily weighted on my list as well. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so 2-part question. What is the thing you love the most about Packers online community, Packers Twitter, as it is sometimes known, and one thing you might change if you had the power to change it?
So one thing I would change if I had the power to change Packers Twitter, you mean? Or just like life in general?
Anything with the online Packers community, whether it's Twitter or wherever else.
Anything. Yeah.
So I'll go in an interesting direction there, but start with like, what do I like the most? I just learned a lot. I mean, I've learned a lot about football through Packers Twitter. I think it's great. Like these are people who are just so dedicated to it that they are coming up with observations that, quite frankly, not everyone, if I say mainstream media, there's such a pejorative concept to that.
Right.
I don't want to use that terminology, but there are things that Packers Twitter is interested in that I would say more traditional media is not interested in, and I want them both. Like I think the two work really well together, kind of, for a consumer who is interested in learning what's going on and getting different perspectives and things like that. I think for the most part, we can all curate our feeds, and for the most part, it's healthy on my timeline. There's obviously, BS that pops up because it is social media, but it's healthy, and I learn a ton. I love that stuff. What I could change about it, I do wish that I do wish it was a little more universal in my where I work, and not even necessarily the Journal Sentinel, but just in like traditional media, that they.
I think we lost JR for a second there. Freezing. Gotta wait a second here.
Rose. I was really enwrapped in that. What was his?
I'm back. I don't know if you guys are still here.
All right.
Yep, we're here.
So I don't know what you heard or didn't hear. If I could change it, I just wish journalists would be as open-minded as possible. A lot of them are, not all of them are, and I just there is, I think, a greater likelihood that when you're dealing with Packers Twitter or any sort of Twitter community, it's not going to be as professional. But I also think that there's still lessons to be learned, things to be taken away, interesting conversations to be had. I think it's not even just a Packers thing. There is not an air of dismissiveness. That's too strong, but there are a lot of journalists that just aren't going to wade in those waters. And it is their right to do that, but also don't, I think that there's a lot to be taken from there. And the questions they ask are good questions. And I kind of think that, it's our job as the conduit to broader reader, the broader audience to ask those questions, or to, at least engage with them on some level, or just have a pretty good reason why not to ask those questions, or why not to engage or answer them, analyze them, whatever. So I don't, most of the people I work with are cool with it. They don't see the Twitter or social media community as an antagonist necessarily, or as wrong or anything like that. It's just, I know there is that feeling, and I hope it goes away. I think it probably will over time, but I think there's just value all the way around.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I always say, we always say every week, like, the answers that our guests bring to that question are always different and always unique. But that's a very specific one that can be very frustrating about just, engaging with all the online content is when I see people who have like a bigger platform, or are more like a higher level in terms of their access and their work, their experience, when they start to like punch down to other creators. It's like, you don't need to do that. Like, everyone's just kind of contributing their own little thing, and most people are like in their particular lanes, and it's and there's the bandwidth in the space for all these different people doing this kind of different work. So we don't need to like punch down on that kind of stuff. Just let people do what they're doing. It's cool.
Yeah.
So, no,
and I would say it does work both ways. There are times where journalists get criticized for not asking certain questions, or not asking in a certain way, not being tough enough. And sometimes I do feel like the aspect that maybe those who don't have that daily access don't understand are the dynamics already at play, and how to ask those questions. When is the right time? How important is that information? Is it an important thing that deserves to be addressed right away? I being somebody who has worked for a major newspaper, like I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of that. Like, I get that they are that those questions have a time and place, and not everyone is going to realize that. And sometimes it's just like, just chill out. They're going to do their job. They want to get you the information. They're going to do it the best they can. And there's always more than meets the eye. But again, it is a two-way street. I think the people who are quote unquote part of Packers Twitter have a lot of interesting stuff that they bring to the table, and present some interesting questions and conversation.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Like, on the other hand, like, the people who do have the access need to maintain that access, and need to maintain like good relationships with the people in the organization. So it's not like they can just go asking any old question they want. Like, there's there's professionalism and decorum around all that.
Sure.
That's a good point. Let people forget that. So appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, JR, we're getting to the final. So again, we really appreciate all that you do to contribute, obviously, in your role at the Milwaukee Sentinel Journal Sentinel.
Hmm.
And we appreciate you spending some time with us today. So last question, who in your life supports you the most so you can spend time with us like you did today? And as a podcaster, as a blogger, as a writer for the Packers community, for obviously for professionally for the Journal, because we want to thank them too.
Hmm.
Well, obviously that would be my wife Liz, and my kids. Been married since 2008, so I don't know where that puts us. 15, 16, 17 years, somewhere in that
Something around
neighborhood.
that, yeah.
I know it when the anniversary rolls around, so it'll
Yeah.
be 16. And yeah, that's a very cool thing. She's a teacher, so she's very busy all the time. We certainly do as much as we can. We got a couple kids that are, one's a 6th grader, one's a 4th grader, so there's obviously a lot of things to get to, a lot of places to be, and it is very tough when one of us leaves for 4 days to go watch dudes run around in Indianapolis at the
Yeah.
combine. So
Yeah. I bet.
so yeah, she is very supportive, and she knows how much I love this job, and she definitely wants me to do fun things if I have the opportunity to do them. So that's very cool. The Journal Sentinel, like I know I've said how much I love working there, but the people there, I really love working there. I just love it so much. The managers I've had have all been so supportive of the work that I've done, and so supportive of with feedback and celebrating success, and constantly tinkering and thinking about ways we can make things work differently. I've just been so lucky with my bosses and my colleagues who do like truly inspiring work. I mean, I tell this to people, but most of my job is kind of like entertainment. It's not hard hitting news. I will do some of that, but mostly, you read my stuff to have a good time. And then hopefully we get you to our website where the people who do the actual work, like, the work on
Right.
Great Lakes pollution and on medical stuff and schools, like those folks are crazy good at their job. They're so inspiring. And I hope that maybe people subscribe because of some wacky thing I put together, and then they get that content, because that's part of our, that's our mission. That's what we're really here for. So I love being in a newsroom with such brilliant, amazing people, and I'm really lucky that I get to share a space with them. I have it really easy where I just get to play around in the sports sandbox and write mostly stuff that isn't going to bother people. Like there's very little
Right.
negative feedback. It's just we're having a good time writing about sports, and I'm lucky that way. It's my colleagues are the ones who really do the heavy lifting. So I'm just honored to be in the room with them.
Nice.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Shout out to your family. Definitely.
I'd love to get a link from you after we're done. I'll message you to remind you to not urgent, but to your coverage of that Dahmer, the Netflix
sure.
Dahmer actress. And then maybe you might, I don't know, would you like to shout out whoever it is on your team, your news team, who might be covering Elijah Vu, the missing child up in Two Rivers? I don't know. It would probably be your crime reporter. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, because we have a paper in Manitowoc, and they primarily they're the ones that are handling a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So but we do have it, and I think some of that stuff is obviously still showing up on the Journal Sentinel website, but
right. Okay.
We have kind of a network that goes beyond even Milwaukee that's covering that sort of thing. So the Manitowoc Herald Times is the paper. Brandon Reed, who's one of the editors / writers there, he's somebody who I know has done some work on that. So that would be the place I go. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll go there and share that too. Because I didn't realize. So is that like a brother sister to the Journal? Are you a different branch or a separate paper? Yeah.
No, it is. So the Journal Sentinel is owned by Gannett Incorporated. They also own USA Today. So USA Today are technically our brethren as well, but we have papers in Manitowoc, Sheboygan, Green Bay, Appleton, Wausau, Stevens Point. Like we've got a few kind of all over the map, and it's our newsrooms don't often work together necessarily, but we do share ideas, and we, even if it's not day to day, we have relationships with everybody in those places. And Oshkosh, I think, is another one that I didn't say, or Fond du Lac. Like we have papers all those spots, so all the way up and down eastern Wisconsin, pretty much.
Makes sense. Yeah. It takes a lot of people to bring all this news together, for sure.
Oh yeah. Sure. Yeah. Well, we really appreciate all your insights. all of the little tidbits that you share with us that we wouldn't
Mhm.
have gotten to know about you if we didn't do this. So we thank you again. Any final thoughts before we say so long?
I don't think so. I appreciate you guys being interested, and yeah, we'll have to touch base again as we get further down the line here with the combine and the draft, and then the next season's going to start. Everyone's going to be excited. There'll be a lot of opportunities, I'm sure.
Indeed.
that'll be
Well, JR,
fantastic.
where can the people find all your stuff?
JSonline.com is the spot. That's where you'll find all the Journal Sentinel content. You can search my name specifically if you'd like, but I don't think there's any real reason to do that. JSonline.com. If you want to looking to get a subscription, if you've got a birthday coming up, or last second gift for, I don't know, it's too early for Mother's Day, I guess, but jsonline.com/deal is where you'll find the latest subscription deals. You can get like 6 months for $1 to start with. It's pretty easy. So that's what I'd encourage people to do.
Excellent.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks again. We hope you have a great time at the combine. We can't wait to see and hear and read, depending on your modality, of all your coverage of that and everything that you put together for the coming up draft. And again, it was great. Your positivity and your kindness is what really shows through in your work, and I love that about you. And I didn't mention that earlier, but it's just a delight to hear your voice. And I guess now we know why you're just so happy, because you love everything about your life. And so it shows, and it's very addicting, and I personally really appreciate it, JR. So thanks
Thank
again.
you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your positivity as well.
Thank you. Maddie.
Man, that was a fun interview. I really enjoyed talking to him. Like you said, his positivity and the joy he brings to it absolutely shows through. Just
and
a nice guy, real smart, real nice guy.
For sure. So kind. And and that comes across when he, I don't know, have you followed the Milwaukee Sentinel, what they're doing for the combine? These little clips every day with him and Tom Silverstein.
Yep.
Yeah. And he's just so great at, I don't know, like he's like the host, like a very gracious host, and highlighting others, right? There's a real art to that, and I think an inherent kindness is required to be hospitable in that way. And that's what he's there for, is to allow other people to shine. And that's just a quality that he has. Love
Indeed.
it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Maddie, let's bring her home. To next week, it's just you and I, and I will definitely. I'm starting to get really into the draft stuff now. I haven't talked about it much, but believe it or not, I'm paying attention and super excited about it. So I can't wait to get into that a little bit more. And some of our upcoming guests not next week, but after that, are just so exciting. So just having a good time with our little podcast. So any final thoughts before we bring her home, Maddie?
Oh gosh. I think it's just a fun time of year, because we have the last few year-end reviews, like the series that John Meerdink's doing right now, has been really great. He did the tight ends one today, which I really enjoyed, because he has a big love for the tight ends. He was a tight end when he played football. So that's kind of like those last few things are tapering off as the explosion of draft content continues to grow, exponentially, it seems, every week. So fun time as we transition, from one thing to the other, and seeing more and more of the content creators that I like to follow are kicking in, high gear with their draft stuff. I mean, for example, here, our friend Iowa Joe mentions that Ohana Packers edition, draft primer just started this past Tuesday. This week we have Sarah Kelleher, who we mentioned earlier today. That's right, our good friend Sarah. So check that out, also, folks. Side note, they do great work on their stuff there with the writing and the podcasts over there on Ope. So check that out as well, folks. But anyhow, no, just a fun time. Dig into it. Get to know these people, get to know their stories, because some are gonna be Packers, and the ones who aren't, who you really end up liking, it's fun to follow them on other teams and kind of see what they're doing. So
It really is. It's so fun, and I like to watch what everybody's doing league wise, because if we don't get them, they're going to go somewhere else, and it's fun to watch other teams and other players develop in those teams.
indeed,
Even though we want them to do, everybody on the Packers, like we want 1 million players on the Packers, we only get so many, 53 and 69, as Gudikins reminds us. So those numbers are very important.
Yes,
So
indeed.
coolio. Well, Maddie, let's bring her home. It's been it was really fun to actually watch that interview.
Yeah, so weird,
we
right?
don't always get to do it. It was fun. It was very fun.
All right, well, friends, we'd love to have a chance to interview you and shout you out if you're a subscriber and a football fan. If you'd like to nominate someone to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know. Our DMs are open on all the social platforms. And folks, when you subscribe to our podcast, you help us to keep spreading the love in our community. The best way to help this podcast grow is by sharing it with your friends and family.
Yes, Maddie, that's right, because we love you. We're so glad to know you, to be fans of you, and have the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL. We appreciate your support, your subscriptions, and sharing our pod, and we look forward to seeing you next week on
Hey, we like your pod.
Football in general comes down to discipline and people owning their roles. And when you aren't disciplined or you go outside the scheme, bad stuff happens.